Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're enjoying your lunch. I hope you will listen to what I have to say, because this is, for me, it's really interesting, and I think it will be interesting for you as well. First of all, this is Færder Lighthouse, just outside of Tjøme in Norway. This is the nearest lighthouse to our office in Norway, where we develop Telescope. If you look at this picture, this is one part of Telescope, the electronic record books. So what we want to do, and what we have developed, is electronic record books that will actually reduce the workload for the officers, and it will increase the quality. I'll come back to that later on, how we do that. I will give you an example. Today, the officers on board the vessels use 2 logbooks. On some vessels, they use 2 logbooks. That means, 1, the voyage logbook. 2nd, the main logbook. During the voyage, the officers add all events in the voyage logbook. And after the voyage, or in the end of the day, they take this voyage logbook and manually take all the events into the main logbook. That is time consuming, now I said it, time consuming. We have changed that, and we have added sensor data, and we have time-stamped all the sensor values. So the only thing the officers need to know is the time. As I said, Telescope is time-stamping every single sensor value that comes in, every second. So if there is an event in the 7 o'clock in the morning, Telescope will tell you the exact sensor values of 7 o'clock in the morning. How do we do that? On board your vessels, we put our Telescope server. We connect sensors and save sensor data. We timestamp all sensor values in Telescope server. We save the data on board the vessel in the server. We make sure we have a safe, secure ship-to-shore network via VPN. We store the data on shore together with our partner EMP Secure. EMP Secure has a Tier 4 classification. It's actually one of the 20th most secured server halls in the world, and is situated in Norway. At the same time, we make sure that the shore users can use the data in our server hall and make evaluations. Talking about Telescope and electronic record books, Telescope is actually a platform for open, extensible platform for onboard data collection. Here we can share information with others. We can share information with other consumers via APIs or REST APIs. We don't need to run more cables than needed. We can instead share the sensor data that we have added into Telescope. To give you an example of quality and timestamps, let's say that we have an event in the ballast record book at 7 o'clock in the morning. We have the same time and the deck logbook, 7 o'clock in the morning. Telescope will make sure that we have the same sensor values in each and every record book we use. If there is a GMDSS, if there is an oil record book 1, oil record book 2, chemical record book, as long as you have the time, we have the same sensor values. That will increase the quality. Our system works on any platforms. In any web browser, you can open it. Okay, follow me now. This is the dashboard. Let's take a tour into Telescope. This is the dashboard. We have voyage status. We can have, if we have information about persons on board, you will find that. We have special instructions like night orders. We have ongoing works. That means that we have checklists. You can actually have your SMS in Telescope. And we have the latest logbooks event. How many clicks do we need to make a logbook event? Okay, we open up the logbook. 2, choose position manual. All sensor values are already there. And we add the entry. That's how easy it is to add an entry and an event in this logbook. I said something about time and time stamping. This time the pilot came on board the 30th of August at 10 o'clock in the morning. Have a look at the coordinates now and the position. When I change from 11 to 10, and the values are changed. We add the name of the pilot. His name is actually Mr. Telko. And now you will find this logbook event in the record book at 10:03. The last capture is about checklists. We have published checklists and we have unpublished. Unpublished one is the one when you have the administration right to publish checklists either from the office or on board as a master. On the right-hand side, we can see the checklist. We can then check, and you can see the open checklists on the middle part here. In the system, we also have the checklist editor down in the right corner. It's very easy to create new checklists, and it's very easy to manage the checklists and push it out to the vessels. Now we name the checklist to Telko. We categorize the checklist as safety. We add a new task. And this task is check 1. Then we add another check 2. And here we can add descriptions. If there is an event, which you will have a special event in the actual logbook, you switch on logged in the logbook. And you save the task. Save the checklist, and there you go. Safety, Telko, and here's the checklist. If you want to talk more about checklists, if you want to talk more about maybe ballast water record books, then we are at B4, in the hall B4, okay? I want to thank you very much for listening and hope you enjoyed your lunch. And at the same time, I also want to present Mr. Gnss Loizou. Gnss Loizou, he is from Orolia, and we have a collaboration together with Orolia. Gnss is actually the man who can take discussions into actions. He can take spoofing and jamming into detection. So a warm applause, Mr. Gnss Loizou.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I see we have a very captive audience here for lunch. So we have very stiff competition with the coffee machine and a really good lunch. But we'll try and give you a few minutes around our solutions, which I hope will be of interest to everybody here. Just a few words about Orolia Maritime. You may recognize some of the brands of what we do. We are the manufacturer of the Canad and Macmodo SAR beacons. We also have the NetWave and Rutter VDR black box, fleet tracking solutions, and what we call resilient PNT, or positioning, navigation, and timing. And that really is the topic for this afternoon. Our core expertise is in RF cybersecurity. There are many, many companies out there who specialize in IT cybersecurity. That is not our forte. That is not our domain. They do that much better than we do. But we are all about GNSS, reliability, resilience, and detection of interference on those devices. You're probably no doubt aware there are multiple constellations of GNSS receivers around the world. You probably even have, on some of the vessels you run or operate, multiple GNSS receivers. Just some of the examples here of the different receivers that can be installed. But for information, these operate in the same band on board the vessel. So if you're jamming and spoofing one of them, there's a good chance the others may be as well. So really the core focus for this session is around GNSS cybersecurity. Now this is very relevant as we've rolled out Gnss paperless navigation, and bridge systems, AIS transponders, etc., of course, rely completely on GNSS reliability. The difference, very briefly, between jamming and spoofing. Jamming is quite simply when you have your signal blocked, you lose your signal, you then have your system revert to dead reckoning. Spoofing, however, is a lot more subtle, a lot smarter, harder to detect. You can have very, very small offsets in the GNSS receiver that are hard to visualize on the system, on the Gnss, for example. When we speak to shipping companies, ship owners, ship operators, they say to us, come on guys, you're positioning this technology, but how often is this actually happening? How often do these occurrences happen in the real world? And we have been collating for many months now multiple instances of jamming and spoofing in the maritime sector. Many of you heard about the Black Sea incident in 2017. It was widely reported that about 20 vessels saw their positions altered, have some form of interference for a few hours in the Black Sea. Well, we worked with a company who do analytics around AIS signals. AIS, of course, is open source. And we found that 684, not 20, 684 vessels were jammed and spoofed that day, over that course of that time. And some of the shipping companies we've been speaking to were in that list, as you can imagine. That's a lot of vessels, a lot of shipping companies. So it is happening. It's happening more and more regularly in multiple regions, multiple areas, and we're really starting to collect that data going forwards. You have other, of course, areas, Eastern Mediterranean, not so surprising. There's a lot of jamming and spoofing happening there as well. And we've had multiple shipping companies, even airline companies, getting warnings around GNSS reliability. Just some other examples here of jamming and spoofing. This was a study done by the UK government, and they evaluated 5 days. If they had a loss of GNSS for 5 days, it would cost £5 billion. This is 5 days for the maritime sector, £5 billion of losses for 5 days loss of GNSS. So there's a very real risk out there. Now, we're not here to scaremonger. We haven't got a silver bullet for all situations or all problems, but we do have a very strong capability to detect jamming and spoofing on board vessels. We take very much a layered approach. So a common platform is installed on board the vessel. It's reading the data from the GNSS receiver. It's alarming or warning the officer of the watch there's something happening with the GNSS receiver, and raising situation awareness as to the risk. We can then, from that standpoint, add extra layers of resiliency or alternate position sources, for example. We also have anti-jam antennas, and we can talk in more detail on the same standard Telko B04 if you want to know more. So basically, Orolia, our core technology is around high precision timing. Some of our customers, like ESA or NASA, use our atomic clocks for their space programs, satellite programs, Galileo, etc. We provide the timing devices for those satellite systems and constellations. Of course, timing is a critical factor in getting a reliable position. So we take that technology and we are starting to do what we call GNSS weather mapping. We want to identify where there are incident hotspots for the shipping industry to pre-warn operators as they approach an area where we're detecting jamming and spoofing. So for example, you can imagine the port of Rotterdam or the port of Limassol, Eastern Med, could have these systems installed. They could be detecting interference in the vicinity of the port and be sending out navigational warnings to the operators, the vessels approaching. Just be careful, your GNSS receiver may be experiencing some interference. It's an early warning system. We're not here to replace traditional navigational methods, but it's a really good early warning system for that type of thing. So we have on our Secure Sync, our hardware platform, we have a software application which has 75 algorithms that handle the detection of jamming and spoofing. So we basically know how normal GNSS signals should behave, and we detect anomalies and highlight that to the navigator. Now the level of sensitivity can be configured depending on the different applications. If we know, for example, approaching the port of Shanghai, there tends to be regular interference. It could be not malicious, it could just be a physical situation in that location. We can attenuate or we can reduce the sensitivity of the detection. The last thing you want is to have endless alarms going off for the navigator on the bridge. And we're very, very glad. We've just teamed up with Telko. Very, very glad to team up with these guys. And they now have the first Gnss, which is interfaced with the Secure Sync. We're running demos on the stand B04, where you can actually see detection of jamming and spoofing. We have a full playback. We can show you the alarms. We can really show you what the officer of the watch would experience on their system. So we're very proud of that partnership. Really glad to be teaming with Martin and the team. And it's very exciting times ahead. You'll be very aware that this region, this area, has had a series of reported incidents around jamming and spoofing. So we feel, as our first time for Orolia, a DONSO event, it's a really fantastic platform for us to meet customers, to network, and this morning's already been fantastic from our perspective. When I talked about alternate sources of positioning, we have access to another technology called STL, or Satellite Timing Location, which uses, on the back of the Iridium network, we send another encrypted signal which gives you an alternate position source. It's not as precise as GPS or DGPS, but at least you have a fallback position in case you have severe jamming and spoofing. It is a kind of backup or redundant system. Okay. I mentioned earlier on anti-jam antennas. Anti-jam antennas are quite a good way to mitigate or reduce some of the risks of jamming and spoofing. A lot of the risks come from the coast, from the horizon, and we have a vertical beam width, 30 degree, which only allows the signals coming from the satellites above the vessel. So it blocks out a lot of the interference from the coast or from other vessels. There have been instances in piracy events where pirates have actually been jamming and spoofing vessel positions and taking vessels off track into different waters or different locations. So there we are. I tried to keep to my time, just about. Very glad to meet everybody at the stand. So far this morning's been fantastic for us, and we're quite excited about this partnership. We believe we have something very unique and look forward to meeting you as soon as possible. Thank you.
Stand a bit with me here. Thank you so much, Chris Loizou.
Thank you.
I heard that this is really good because partnership is one of the key words, you know, and collaboration and together as well as that. But I just wanted to know, because I heard that this is your first time
Absolutely.
at Gnss Shipping Meet. Yes. So what is your impressions so far?
Well, from our perspective, we really like the scale of this. The scale, having everybody in such a location, I think is fantastic. We have an interested audience. I think we have some very high-profile customers. I'm amazed about the number of ship owners actually at the event. It's incredible. And I have to say, Martin did a fantastic sales job on Orolia, getting us to come along and join you for the event. It's been really good this morning. We had some fantastic speed dating meetings already. If one of those comes off, it's been very good already. But we have more planned, and we really welcome everybody to our stand. It's been really good so far.
Yes.
Really
And
good.
where can we find you in the exhibition area?
That's B04 on the Telko stand.
B04. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us this valuable input. Thank you so much. With a big applause.
Thanks very much.